Hello everyone, and welcome to our Rural Roots Showcase celebrating our achievements over the course of year two. For those of you that are not familiar with me, I will be your MC for today's events. My name is Daniela Seiferling, and I am the Program Manager for Work Integrated Learning at RDN. So today's agenda gives you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about. There is space for us to network. There's space for you to ask questions throughout. And there's also an opportunity for you to meet some of our post-secondary institution partners to learn more about upcoming WIL opportunities. And then to take a look at what's coming for the future in year three. So just some general housekeeping. If you have any technical issues, my team members are on the call with us today, and we'll be monitoring the chat function and providing tech support. So if you run into any issues, please directly message Robin Kyler for support. And our principles of engagement are simple. So we ask attendees to engage in the showcase in ways that feel most comfortable for you. So that can be reacting using emojis, leaving questions or comments in the chat, or raising your hand to ask questions, or simply sitting back and listening to our conversation today. And just a reminder for those folks who have just joined us that we are recording and live tweeting today's session. So if you don't feel comfortable being part of our social media, please turn off your camera. And just a quick intro to who is the WIL team on the call. So myself, the program manager, we also have Deborah Mavoria, who's our experiential learning coordinator, and Robin Kyler, who is our employer engagement coordinator. We'd like to open our formal agenda with a land acknowledgement. RDN's physical office is located in Amiskwichi, Wisconsin, also known as Beaver Hills House or Edmonton. We are on Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis Nation of Region 4. These lands are traditional meeting grounds, gathering places, and traveling routes to the Cree, Saulteaux, Niitsitapi Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. This acknowledgement reaffirms our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast, we want to acknowledge and recognize there are a vast number of nations spread throughout Canada, each with their own unique culture, language, governance systems, and contribution to history, shared knowledge, and this country prior to contact. If you feel comfortable, please share your name and where you're joining from today in our chat. We'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the Business and Higher Education Roundtable in partnership with the Government of Canada for their ongoing support for work integrated learning and Rural Roots. BHER's commitment to creating innovative WIL experiences has allowed our program to adapt and address current challenges or emerging trends. They champion our work, connect us with new partners, support the program's expansion, or support research relating to WIL best practices or emerging trends. We hope to continue our partnership with BHER in the future and thank them for being here today. So today's agenda showcases success stories from our second year, celebrates our achievements, and gives you a glimpse into what we're planning for the future of the program. I'd like to share a little bit more about what we've managed to achieve in year two. So in year two, we facilitated over 1,000 matches, bringing our totals to more than 1,500 since the program launched in 2021. We also had quite a few paid campaigns running. And so you've seen our posts on social media or you've connected with us through our website. In doing so, we managed to engage more than 100,000 employers across Canada. A large part of this is attributed to the successful communications campaign that Debbie has been running, sharing stories from our network. So you'll hear a little bit more about Rural Roots' impact during our guest speaker portion. We also streamline our technology to better serve clients in rural areas. So with your direct feedback from year one, from our partners, employers, and students, we worked to make these improvements with you in mind. So this included the development of a microsite, which serves as a one-stop landing page for our network to access resources, view current opportunities, post a project, or register for upcoming workshops and webinars. We also launched a new matching platform in partnership with Simplicity that was easier for you to navigate and provided future growing potential as we continue to expand the program to include new partners or experiential learning streams. In addition to this, we also fostered relationships with post-secondary institutions, growing our numbers from 4 original partners to more than 20 different post-secondaries across Canada. So to highlight some of what our interns accomplished during the first and second year, we'd like to share an example of a video, a completed project from a former RDN intern. So Kendall Bork couldn't be with us today, but she created a video to help us explain the concept of will to a more general audience. And since completing her internship, she has gone on to pursue further education and is currently working toward a diploma at the prestigious Vancouver Film School. So we'd like to premiere this video for you now. I don't think it's playing. Is it playing for anybody else? No, seeing a head shake. Okay, let's try this again.
In this video, we wanted to provide an overview of work integrated learning and some practical examples of how you can create a project to engage students in your organization. So what exactly?
Sorry, looks like it might be buffering. Try that again.
Exactly is work integrated learning, or WIL? It's a placement that combines practical experience with academic knowledge. Most people are familiar with things like co-ops, apprenticeships, and internships. And still, there are many different types of WIL, including community and industry research projects, apprenticeships, co-ops, entrepreneurship, field placements, internships, practicums, community service learning, and work experience. A company that designs mobile phone apps has engaged a group of students for a weekend hackathon. By tapping into multiple skill levels in the areas of coding and design, they can quickly develop an interactive map showcasing the various events, festivals, and local venues to help you make the most of the summer season. Medium-sized business has been struggling with increases in employee turnover. To help with long-term retention strategies, they hired a business student to work on an applied research project. The student analyzed data from employee interviews and workplace satisfaction surveys to assess levels of engagement. Their recommendations helped inform new and improved wellness and employee benefit policies. Biological sciences student takes soil samples as part of their field placement. They are studying the long-term effects of climate change and how droughts and flooding impact a local municipality's crops and overall soil health to help strengthen local climate change actions. Finally, we have a group of marketing and communication students working on a course-based internship project. They're supporting a local nonprofit with their volunteer recruitment efforts. They're creating an advertising campaign, including social media content and graphics, to recruit new volunteers to help with an upcoming fundraiser. Engaging students is about creating a mutually beneficial project that supports shared learning outcomes and provides value for your business or organization. Learn more about the Rural Development Network's Work Integrated Learning Program at www.ruraldevelopment.ca/initiatives.
So over the past 2 years, we've had the opportunity to connect with rural and remote employers and learn more about your challenges when it comes to accessing opportunities. We've met many passionate educators who continue to champion an ecosystem of lifelong learning, employers who are passionate about mentoring the next generation, and students who are inspired to make a difference or tackle new challenges. We are very excited to share some participants' stories about the impact of Rural Roots and what it's done for their work or their future careers. So John and I had the pleasure of meeting through a community of practice around learning ecosystems in Alberta. And from our first conversation, it was evident that we are both champions of what we like to call lifelong learning. For us, education is not just something we learn through a textbook or a classroom. It's knowledge we gain from our mentors, our peers, and our community that enhance who we are as individuals and professionals. It is this fundamental belief that led to the creation of the Crow's Nest Pass learning ecosystem, which brings together a diverse group of community leaders and citizens of all ages in a multi-stakeholder process to develop an innovative, interdependent, and connected learning ecosystem in the Crow's Nest Pass region. From the perspective of someone outside looking in, the learning ecosystem is a very complex idea that has many different pathways for people to engage in their work. This can be difficult to market to external audiences if an organization is still trying to figure out their place and develop their key messages or brand identity. So John was very keen to include the youth perspective throughout this process and saw Rural Roots as a way to foster connections between the organization, the community, and youth from across the province. It was with our support that John engaged 15 students from the School of Business at MacEwan University to support the development of a communications and marketing strategy. So we tasked the students with addressing the following question: how might we market the learning ecosystem to the broader community to create better engagement and increased understanding? Through a series of interviews and a community presentation, these students delved deeper into understanding the challenges faced by the Crow's Nest Pass region, understanding the different target markets and audience demographics, and what resources the organization had to support different engagement strategies. Since these projects were a little bit shorter term, there wasn't an opportunity for the students to create a full-scale marketing plan as part of their deliverables. Instead, their research informed different tactics for future marketing and communications. With guidance from their instructor and John, students evaluated their proposed tactics based on feasibility, limitations, and opportunities to create a list of suggested recommendations related to strategic marketing. So then after that was done, John used these recommendations to help define next steps as a jumping off point for new WIL projects or to inform conversations with other stakeholders in his community. I had the pleasure of being invited to sit in on the students' final presentations, and it was very clear that the students loved working with John. They felt supported throughout the process and found John's energy to be infectious, and that it gave them freedom to be innovative in their ideas or share more personalized recommendations. John also spoke very highly of the students and their work. He recommends WIL as a wonderful opportunity to inject new ideas or viewpoints in your day-to-day work. Now we'd like to invite one of our current students to talk about their experiences with WIL and how this current internship through Rural Roots is supporting their future career or academic goals. So I'd like to invite Kirsten Schmidt to please speak about her experience.
Hi, my name is Kirsten, and I'm currently a fourth-year student at the University of Alberta studying biology and psychology. So growing up in rural communities, I never thought I would be working on large-scale projects and making an impact on the places that I've come from. Starting at the U of A, I thought that any work experience I got would be in one of the more typical part-time student jobs. But within my second year, I had landed a peer tutor position through a course that I had previously taken, where I was able to use my love for reading and writing and knowledge from my academics to help others. As a science student, I am passionate about learning, and doing so with a purpose is even better. So the first summer of the COVID pandemic, I was not sure what I was going to do. I took full-time spring courses, but I decided I needed a break during the summer months for fear of burning out. I did not have a vehicle yet, and I was living at home in a rural community to save money. So I was 30 minutes from the nearest town, and a part-time job at a local shop would not be available to me. I was lucky enough to have a parent that was working alongside a university, and they fell upon a position on the U of A careers page with our current town listed. I realized I could do this as I've got a computer and some free time. The position at that time was a little bit above my experience level, but I still sent an inquiry email and an updated resume in the off chance I would be able to do anything to keep my mind busy. I was warmly welcomed as a volunteer summer research assistant, and I spent most of my time proofreading, transcribing, creating posters, and so on. I was inspired and motivated, and I ended up asked to continue throughout the school year. That small email really allowed me to go from zero experience to a temporary summer position to a 3-year-long position. I got to forge some great connections, work with a welcoming team, and gain a lot of technological and literacy skills. Throughout the project, I attended many seminars and workshops, and I got to improve my knowledge of the research world as well as acquire my ethics certification. After that project came to an end, I was again unsure of where I would go, but I was happy to added that to my CV. Then someone from my team had forwarded me a position with a view of A again, but this time it was partnered with the RDN. After looking into the RDN and their Rural Roots project, I realized that many of their values fit with what I was hoping to accomplish at some point. And as someone motivated to work with rural communities and continue with research into best practices in the education field, I applied quickly. Much of my tasks right now involve research, a lot of reading and writing, and I also had to improve my social skills, which after lockdown felt quite difficult. But the people I met along the way were great, and I was required to learn a lot about political processes as well as some economic stuff. And these are still a bit new to me, but learning is lifelong. I learned to create logic models about theory of change and about varying organizations that I never would have known existed. So as anyone would, I hope my impact on the organization is a positive one. I believe that I offered firsthand experience and insight into some of the models explored. I helped the project advance and offered a hand whenever needed, some of it being grunge work and seemingly relentless, but getting it done. When we get stuck somewhere, we'd rely on each other to help push through and offering a new perspective and making things interesting again. So currently, I'm looking into models of best practices when it comes to work integrated learning. Through numerous interviews and focus groups, I'm hoping to gain perspective from all parties involved. That would be the post-secondary institutions, the employers, and the students. So as a student, I may have used WIL for different reasons, and therefore listening to the insight offered by others has really been eye-opening. Students not only find WIL boosts their confidence, but it allows them to explore the career path they were opting towards. And although the goal is to encourage them to explore their chosen field, sometimes they may realize that the theory explored in class was not what they expected when they start applying it. My favorite part about working with the various organizations was definitely meeting people. I'm typically quite shy and I prefer individual work where I can just plug away at something on my own time, but I found there really were times where collaboration was most important. Throughout my WIL projects, I've been surrounded by strong and creative women. They've been such great, inspiring role models that have instilled a belief that there will be a place for me once I've completed my program. The majority of my projects have been female-led, and the comfortable atmosphere that created was helpful through my last 2 years of school. I'm able to see someone of the same gender make their place in the research world and surpass the many barriers. Thanks to the various WIL programs, I'm confident that my career path will be in research and academics. Through each project, I've grown fond of the work I've done and the communities I've worked with. My hope is that this project, alongside my other WIL opportunities that I've had, will help me when it comes to applying and completing grad school. And I strongly urge any students to engage in some kind of WIL, as I see the way it has helped me find my passion, open doors, and inspired ideas for potential future projects that I may want to explore.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for sharing your story today. So we appreciate both Kirsten and John for taking the time to share their stories with the network. We can see how work integrated learning has had tangible impacts for your community or even personal and professional development. So we wanted to take the opportunity to open it up to the audience for some question and answer if you have any questions for either Kirsten or John. And feel free to drop them in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, you can unmute your mic and ask questions to the network as well. Yeah, Andrea.
I loved Kirsten's presentation. I thought she did such an amazing job. I had the pleasure of meeting Kirsten in June. And I was wondering about what I'm wondering what you feel was the most important feature or function in your work that helped you, that supported that reflection so that you could reflect on your learning?
I think definitely having someone who is very clear upfront and the communication is very important. Having not a boss, but a leader that is very direct with what they want, what they need, and having those outcomes like listed very clearly, so I'm able to accomplish what both myself need and the other person.
Great.
Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Yeah. So then what, so do you have other experiences to compare it to that didn't have that clarity? And that's how you're able to appreciate the clarity?
Yeah, so I did have sort of a will position where I had to create a project for community that I found the person was not very communicative, and also it felt they might not have known what
Great.
as well. And that required me to do a lot more than I believe what was initially expected of me, where I had to go to like outside in the community and ask those people what they wanted rather than the person that was kind of in charge of the project.
Great.
Yeah, that was a little bit frustrating and time consuming, but it ended up getting done and it ended up turning out, I hope, wonderfully. But yes, it was.
Right. So curating an experience that matches the level of your understanding and knowledge and talking about it to get that clarity, but those outcomes, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Any other questions for either Kirsten or John? If you think of any throughout the rest of the conversation, feel free to put them in the chat. I want to keep being respectful of everyone's time as we do have a few more guest speakers on the call as well. So in a minute, we are going to launch breakout rooms so employers or students can connect with a few of the PSI partners we have on the call to learn more about WIL or find your next opportunity. So last year at the showcase, we heard this was a wonderful opportunity to connect and find out who is currently recruiting and how to go about engaging in opportunities for upcoming semesters. So with us today, we have Lauren McVie, who is with NEAT. We have Terry O'Dwyer, who is with SAIT, so the Northern Alberta and Southern Alberta Institutes of Technology, and Andrea Arden, who is with Medicine Hat College. And I do apologize, I think I messed up the rooms when I was setting them up. So Lauren is in room 1, Terry is in room 2, and Andrea is in room 3. So each PSI has prepared a short presentation highlighting their WIL programs and the opportunities they have available. There will also be time for you to network with our PSI reps and ask any questions that you may have related to WIL. So if you're not an attendee who is a current student, or if you're an attendee who's not a current student of one of these institutions, the Rural Roots team is staying back in the main meeting room to answer any questions you may have regarding WIL or engaging with Rural Roots, but we strongly encourage you to join a breakout session. Robin, I will turn it over to you to launch the rooms for choice. So we just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who hosted a breakout room session for us. This was something new that we tried this year. So if you have any feedback on the process or how that went, please let us know. And so as we're getting everybody settled, feel free, just as a reminder, if you don't want to be part of our social media, to turn off your camera. But looking ahead for year 3 is kind of where we're at. So we wanted to give folks an idea of what they could expect coming up for the 2023-2024 program year. Quickly had to do some calendar math in my head. So we'd like to invite our colleague, Sohaila, Maya to talk about our latest expansion for the Rural Roots program. So Sohaila, please unmute.
Thanks, Daniela. Hi, everyone. My name is Sohaila Homayed, and I'm a project manager with the immigration team at RDN. And it's my honor to, get the opportunity to announce that with support from Prairies Canada, we're excited to announce a new expansion of 2 of our existing programs, the Ready to Work project. And READY stands for the Rural Employers Awareness on Diversity and Inclusion, and the Rural Roots project. So this new initiative will be called Ready to Work, and it's a collaboration between our immigration initiative and the work integrated learning teams at RDN. And the program is built to support the attraction, retention, and integration of newcomers in rural and remote communities. So there are 2 major beneficiaries to the program. The first is employers, and what they'll gain from this is the opportunity to have access to customized training to be able to support newcomer employees, the opportunities to collaborate with other employers who have either hired newcomers or hoping to hire newcomer employees, and also the opportunity to build their workforce with innovative work placements and have opportunities to access information and resources to support current staff and then future employees as well. On the student side, for newcomers, they will benefit by having the ability and the access to gain relevant work experience in Canada through, Ready certified employers and employers who are dedicated to providing more welcoming and inclusive workspaces for newcomers. So right now, we're currently in the recruitment stage, and we're looking for new employers to participate in the next cohort. We are looking for employers of any industry and kind of any size who are looking to hire newcomers for the first time, or who have hired newcomers and who are looking for more support on how to help them integrate into the workforce, or gain some skills on how to create a more welcoming and inclusive environment. So if you're from Northern or Central Alberta and you're looking forward to this program, we are collecting an expression of interest forms until October 20th. So Daniela will drop the link in the chat. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or like more information about the project, if you'd like to participate, or if you know a community that's interested. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sohaila. And I believe Robin has dropped the link in the chat for anybody who is interested in participating. So the expression of interest is open from now until October 20th this year. So what else are we planning for the year coming up? Well, we're continuing to explore opportunities to expand Rural Roots beyond our current programming. So similar to the partnerships that we've launched with Sohaila's program, we're looking to focus our efforts on developing a toolkit for post-secondary partners to build or enhance their own WIL programs, support policy and process development relating specifically to work integrated learning, and providing more spaces for us to learn directly from employers, students, and our peers. So this will be informed by the research that Kirsten is currently doing and talked about earlier in today's presentation. And so if you'd like to be part of this, you can sign up for one of the focus group sessions that we're hosting in September. And we have specific focus groups for PSIs, students, and employers. So feel free to jump into the session that makes the most sense for you. And if you can't make a focus group session, we also have an opportunity for individual interviews with Kirsten as well. So you can reach out to us after and we'll connect you to those opportunities. And we're also interested in expanding work integrated learning beyond post-secondary. So as you've mentioned, and has been a prevalent theme throughout this presentation, you probably heard it, that experiential learning or work integrated learning is something that happens throughout our lives. It's not something that is unique to us when we're just in school. It's opportunities for us to enhance our resumes, our skill sets, or just learn things that we hadn't really thought of before. So we're continuing to foster new partnerships and exploring various opportunities to create experiential learning or WIL for high school students and those already in the workforce who are looking for opportunities to expand their skill sets. And then we're also looking at developing a fee-for-service model to build a sustainable project while seeking out new grant funding or other funding sources to help keep costs low for our employers, students, and post-secondary partners. So as we continue to expand, we ask you to keep an eye out for details. And if you have ideas about how you'd like to partner with us, we're always open to conversation, either myself or any member of the WIL team. So before we kind of wrap things up for today, I wanted to make sure that folks had an opportunity to ask questions. So this can be questions about anything that our guest impact speakers have talked about, our plans for year 3, or asking questions to our lovely breakout room presenters if there was something that you wanted to clarify with them. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand and unmute your microphone. So we had a question for Sohaila. Could you tell us a little bit about the first READY project, the pilot project that you ran, and what were some of the outcomes from that initiative that led to the creation of Ready to Work?
Absolutely. So we're just finishing now creating a toolkit of all the training materials that we've developed over the past year, but we worked with 15 employers from North Central and Southern Alberta. And we first started with a needs assessment, so understanding what their gaps and challenges were in being able to attract, but also retain newcomer employees. And from this needs assessment survey, we created a training program with 6 modules. We did in person and virtual, and we were able to support employers with understanding, the needs of newcomers, what they can do to support newcomers in the workplace and the community, understanding what, inclusive workplace policy is, helping organizations assess their own capacity. And it was very successful because we had employers from many different industries. We had very small employers who had 2 employees to employers who had 75% of their workforce were newcomers. So it was an incredible program. And some of the things that, we learned throughout the training was that, the biggest asset for employers was the opportunity to connect with each other. A lot of these employers have similar barriers and challenges in attracting and retaining newcomers, and opening the doors to conversations and innovative practices that some employers have engaged in, I found was the best opportunity to be able to connect employers with each other in different rural communities. Also supporting employers and understanding, where they're currently at. So, you'd be surprised by how much diversity actually exists in your organization. And we were able to help employers understand, what diversity looks like and how they can support their employees. So those were kind of the main themes. And a lot of employers also, they had challenges similar to other rural communities like transportation and housing. But we found that being able to collaborate and speak with each other actually allowed for a lot of innovative practices to be able to find solutions to some of these barriers that, we might experience in rural communities that we don't experience in urban centers. So it was very successful, so much so that as the program continued, we were gauging more interest from other employers in different industries. So then we were able to apply for more funding to continue the program. So now, phase 2, we're going to take everything that we've learned and all the experiences, and we're going to create an even better training program to be able to support more employers in different communities. But overall, it's been awesome. And we're publishing a toolkit in September that will take all the training materials, the resources, and some of the templates that we've developed, and it will be free to be able to access across the province for any employer hoping to gain some practices or some knowledge about some of the training that we've done. So that will be published mid-September as well. Sorry, that was a rampage, but very successful program. And we're excited for the next phase.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Sohaila. And you kind of brought us to a nice segue for our next question, because you were talking about the toolkit. So one of the questions we are often asked and was brought up today is, what are the resources that exist to kind of help employers who are just getting started with WIL or engaging a student? So I know our post-secondary partners are still on the call, and feel free to jump in if there's specific supports that you offer at your institution. From the Rural Roots side of things, we do have several resources available on our Will microsite that are summarizing how you can kind of create a project, onboard a student, and those general introductions to Will before we do the warm introduction to our post-secondary partners to get you set up with an opportunity. And in addition to those, we actually have what we call employer meetings or introduction meetings that you can book with us. And we help you kind of narrow down your project, narrow your focus, and really understand what your challenges are so that you can get the most from your interns. So I don't know if any of our PSIs have other resources that they'd like to include, but feel free to share.
I think we all have resources that are, quite specific to our place, they're very quite specific to our own organization. But I'd love to look at some of those documents you spoke about, Daniela, just to get some ideas perhaps on how I could improve things on my end.
Yeah, absolutely, Terry. We'd be happy to share those. And I know, accidentally clicked mute. Always too fast on the trackpad. One of the questions that we also often get asked is, what is the process? And I feel probably Lauren, Andrea, Terry, you all kind of covered this, between an employer's interest versus when they actually match with a student, because we know that process can kind of do this. So do you have some general timelines that you'd like to share with employers on the call about when they should consider hiring, or when they should consider looking at creating a project before they actually engage with you? Yeah, Lauren.
So for most of our programs, our start dates line up with the semester start dates. It depends on the program whether they have more than one intake, if they would, for example, have a January or a September start date for a Will experience. But generally those like September, January, May, those are our start dates for Will experiences. And usually employers are reaching out a couple of months before that. So like in late January, February is a really busy time for our summer experiences. That's when a lot of the coordination is happening. And so it does happen quite a bit in advance. But the pro side to that is that the earlier you have your posting up and ready, if it is a position that is requiring a posting and students to apply to, the more applications you'll have to choose from as an employer. So you'll have the most diversity in terms of applicants. Whereas if you're applying kind of late into the game, which is also totally fine, but we have some employers coming to us the last week of April saying they'd like a student for May, which is also fine. There's usually still a couple of people looking for something. You just will have less diversity in terms of your applicants.
That's a great summary. Thank you, Lauren. And I would say it probably aligns across institutions, but Terry or Andrea, feel free to add anything.
Yeah, that's about right. The only thing, sometimes companies do approach me and say, oh, when is this class finishing? Because they think, okay, I'll get a student from that class, from that program. But I always let them know that, students have up to 5 years to complete their Will component in my mandatory, my programs where Will, where practicum is mandatory. And so while, yeah, sure, there are certain times throughout the year where things line up when a program may be finishing and students are, actively looking for positions, I still have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students who have not finished their practicums. So they're good to go any day, anytime, year round. So I never put limitations on the time frames. If a company comes to me and says, we want a student, to start December 24th, then we can probably come up with something, because we still have lots and lots of students who haven't finished their Will component yet, their practicum in my case. So yeah, we try to line it up and let companies know when programs do end so that, because those students are actively looking, but there's always students available, always students available.
And from my perspective, so I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that you have about 30,000 students at St. and Nate each. Is that crazy? 30,000. So our population is about 2,500. And so in a smaller institution, we need more time, because what you want to do, we might not have a program that offers that. And so I was almost thinking of saying, this is crazy, not responsive, not, flexible, but almost like we ask students to prepare a year in advance, so if they want to come to school next September, it'd be nice if they thought about it this September and then planned for the whole year to come to school. If there's not already a pre-existing relationship, or the employer is in a field where we don't offer graduates specifically from that field, but we want to try to be creative about how we connect, having a good amount of time to understand one another and to figure out what's available would be awesome. Whereas there's other situations, like our office admin students are going out, on this week for this amount of time, where we don't need that, lead up. But I often like to think about this as an opportunity to create something that is a good fit for everyone. And so the longer we have to figure that out, the better results everyone will have, which is not timely. I loved how Lauren said some employers come in April and want something for May. And I loved how she didn't make it wrong or bad. And she said, and we can do that too. But in the back of my mind, the more time we have, the better outcome everyone will have.
Oh, that is great insight, Andrea. And there will be differences between larger and smaller institutions. And I think one thing for employers to always keep in mind, and students as well, is that this is a flexible process. We know it's going to do a little bit of this throughout, and a match is not always guaranteed the same day that you ask for one. So I think when we're having those conversations, it's making sure that people kind of understand it's not linear. It's a little bit of a different process in terms of flow. So that is a great reminder for all of us.
And one more tiny thought. And what's really great about this opportunity is that I'm getting to connect with Terry and Lauren, and they know who I am. And so when I think, ooh, this doesn't match, what we do, but, this might be a good fit for Sate or Nate, then, we have those connections and relationships. So that's what I've loved about partnering with RDN, is all of the relationships that I've been able to build with my peers in post-secondary and outside with employers as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Andrea. We really should collaborate a bit more, to understand each other, because at the end of the day, the only thing I'm concerned about is the success of the students, and whether they get the success through me or they get the success through another opportunity from someone else. So we really should be collaborating more and not looking at each other as like, oh, that's a will competitor for me or something. We shouldn't really be thinking about that at all, So it'd be great to connect, because if I can help you and you can help me, and what I mean by help me is help my students, and I can help your students, then at the end of the day, I mean, that's what we need to focus on.
No, we love that. We love the more collaborative peer models. And I always joke, Andrea's heard me say it multiple times, that how does RDN function in this landscape? Well, we are an extension of our post-secondary partners, and we're kind of the Barney Stinsons of the relationship. So we do the Have You Met Ted? Just substitute that with Medicine Hat College or SATE or Nate is kind of how our relationship works. So I will see if there's any other questions for folks. So we did have one around what are some of the unique lessons we've learned from running year 2 that will help inform us as we move forward. So this is a very interesting question. I think you've heard part of it is that it's not a linear process and that it moves at the pace that everybody is ready so that it is mutually beneficial for all parties involved. I would say another big insight for us is that employers, especially in rural areas, are more greatly impacted by things like elections or delays to funding, because that is going to significantly impact budgets, capacity, and things like that. So just being aware of that throughout the process as well is helping to inform some of the ways that we approach conversations or find opportunities that really fit for the employer as well as the student. So I'd say those are probably our biggest insights, but I'll see if the team has any that they'd also like to add. Well, if you think of any, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll give folks maybe one more minute. If there's any final questions.
It's the same with my breakout room, Danielle. I don't know if there's not many questions or if we just explain everything so well from the beginning. I'm not quite sure what it is, but Tricia says yes. She's my good sport who was in my breakout room. Either we explained everything so well there's no questions, or we just have a quiet group. But let's assume it's the former. Let's assume it's the first thing that we're talking about there.
I think it is a combination of both. I find people are just always very quiet too. They want to listen. I don't know. That's my learning style. I listen, I take things away and then ask questions afterwards. So,
and usually somebody else asks your question, so you'll get it.
Or it's usually answered later on as we go throughout the presentation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So with that in mind, I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to celebrate with us today, and a huge thank you to our breakout room hosts, Andrea, Lauren, and Terry, for being with us on the call today. We hope that you leave a little bit inspired by our guest impact speakers, by our post-secondary partners, and are thinking of ways that you can incorporate a work integrated learning project in your own organization. And we look forward to growing this program with you and hope that you have an amazing rest of your summer and heading into September, which I can't believe I'm saying. But if you have any questions about how to sign up for Rural Roots or want to connect with our team to work on a project, you can book a meeting with us or email us at will@ruraldevelopment.ca or visit our website. And I know Robin has been dropping links in the chat throughout the presentation, but we will send a follow-up email to all participants with this recording, with any resources that we've shared today and the links to all of the things that we've talked about. So thank you so much for your time. It was great to see everyone.